Welcome back to another episode of Tech Sheck, folks. As you can see, we continue to build, develop, and share lots of cool and interesting stories about the Pakistan tech startup ecosystem. And there's somebody really special. It took a little while to get her on today, but I'm really happy to welcome Halima Iqbal from Oraan Tech. Halima, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. Always great to have young, vibrant folks like yourself on the show, doing some interesting things in Pakistan. So let's dive right in. First, tell us a little about you and tell us a little bit about Oraan Tech.
Absolutely. So I started off my career as an investment banker in Toronto, and then moved on to do consulting. While I was consulting, I had also gone back to school to be a certified chef, and built some interesting financial technology products for the bank that I was consulting with, primarily targeted to immigrants and students. Was in Canada for about 10 years before deciding I wanted to move back to Pakistan. So this is 2017, late 2017, 2 weeks before I was getting married. And then started to understand the landscape a little bit in 2018. What was happening? What did fintech mean in Pakistan? But around the same time when I was networking and trying to understand the landscape, I was also trying to open up a bank account because that's what you do when you move to a country. This was also the first time I was coming back as an adult to live in Pakistan, right? So I needed a bank account. But any bank that I was going to, the question was, why do you need a bank account? I was unemployed at that time. I had just moved back, and I was a woman. So it took me 3.5 months to open up a bank account, but that process was so frustrating, and that gave me just like enough to question what was happening in the market, right? Like if I consider myself a slightly sophisticated financial user. And if I was being rejected based on my gender, what is the ground reality? And I started starting with my mom. She was like, yeah, we don't have bank accounts of our own. I was like, how do you even like do transactions? It's all cash based. How do you save? It's done through committees. How do you take credit? It's done through committees. And that was just interesting, and I started speaking to multiple people, from friends to families. This behavior started coming out that while large majority of people might not have access to formal financial services, they've created their own groups of people that they would bank with, very similar to community banks or credit unions. And that was very fascinating for me. And I bumped into my co-founder, Farwa, at that point, who has a design background. And we both started researching this space, this market. And the idea was like, if the formal financial institutions are not providing access, what is the behavior looking like from a customer's perspective? So we targeted your all different kinds of socioeconomic classes, and largely urban and peri-urban areas in Pakistan. Right. And with a sample size of about 2,000 people, we found that 41% of the population actually does committees as an alternative. Wow. And what does this committee mean? How does it function? What is happening in this market? That was very, very fascinating for us to then dive deeper into it, to realize that it's actually a microcosm of a bank. It's deposit. There's a credit function to it. There is an insurance function to it. There's a savings function to it. And it is super communal, which makes the default rates really low as well. So we just took this as an entry point, and digitized it, understood the customer's needs and requirements, and then started building the platform that is Oraan.
Very, very cool. No, that is a very unique, that's an observation that I've seen that's even transferred itself into our environment here in North America, right? And I know that my mother used to participate in these, and a lot of family friends and things. So that's something that's I feel is really important to build on, because it also helps create the mindset of, let's save for future purchases. Let's not involve ourselves in debt. So very, very cool. So tell us what is your goal with Oraan? What, realistically, what would you like to see it do in the next 2 to 3 years?
Absolutely. We want to be a household financial services provider. And when we design around women, which means that we understand their digital literacy, their financial literacy, their requirements, and the distribution is set in a way that caters to their requirement. And from there, we have also started understanding that once you mobilize a woman, you actually mobilize the entire household. And that's really the goal, to be a full services financial products provider. Which is based on utility of households, not necessarily consumption. So focus will always be, how do we grow wealth? How do we save better? How do we provide facilities that actually give you that upward mobility that you require in your life?
Excellent. So question for you now, given that there's a very large percentage of our population that's not English engaged, right? And are you creating a platform for people in an Urdu speaking environment? How does that work?
Absolutely. So we provide services in all languages. It's not just Urdu. There's also regional languages that we need.
Oh, very good, very good.
It's not. So from a service provider, we have to understand the language the woman speaks, the language the entire household speaks, the times that they're available at, the way they want the product to be distributed as well, right? Like what your socioeconomic class A or elite would want is not necessarily the same behavior your middle income would want, or you're below the pyramid. So understanding the requirements, understanding the language of the customer is extremely important to build the entire experience, which also bridges the trust deficit that exists with the formal financial services and the customer. And that's why the gap is so large, right? We believe that it's not just a access issue in Pakistan, it's also a design issue. That's why the focus on customer experience is so high for Oraan.
Got it. Very interesting. No, love it. Very unique, very interesting way to help people develop literacy, and particularly women, who I would agree with you wholeheartedly can impact the flow of a household. So much agreed there. So as you know, Halima, we try not to stretch these out too much. Last question is, what can the diaspora do to help? And I think this is super important.
I think encouraging more and more women to come into the ecosystem, creating a platform where capital is not a problem, where resourcing is not a problem, and allowing and setting those precedents through different women from different parts of the world to be able to contribute to the ecosystem. I think it's extremely important. Almost 50% of the population of Pakistan is women, and if you don't contribute equally, economic growth gets hampered. So understanding that and bringing in more success stories, creating mentorship opportunities for young women who want to be able to take this journey, it's slightly easier and not as lonely as it has been for a lot of us here.
That's really good to know and understand. And we will continue to help you spread that message. And first of all, I really want to thank you for your time. I know you've been extremely busy with your recent fundraise and getting things moving. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure being here.
Likewise. And to our audience, as you can see, again, unique, interesting, people with vision, trying to do different things. Please continue to share our message, like, share, and subscribe. As you see, we don't prescribe to politics. We prescribe to what's going on in Pakistan in a positive fashion. And we want to keep building on that. So please keep the message going. And with that, I bid you all Allah Hafiz.